Hola chicos y chicas, lo que se viene a continuación es un conversatorio entre alumnos de Luis Humberto y músicos de la CAM. La CAM es la Comunidad de Aprendizaje Musical. Es un grupo de músicos profesionales que se dedican a la música, viven de la música, trabajan para la música de toda América. Hay músicos de Brasil, Argentina, Ecuador, Estados Unidos, y van a contestar a preguntas que muchos de ustedes hicieron. Veamos.
¿En qué momento supieron que querían ser músicos? ¿Y por qué eligieron ese instrumento que tocan?
I think for me it was around high school time when I was playing in the orchestra, and I really enjoyed music, and people said to pursue what you really love to do, and I love doing music, and I said, well, let's go with that path, and so I kind of stuck through with it. And piano, that's just the instrument that I started learning, and I liked it and kept going with it.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I was around senior year. I was still undecided, but I had been practicing my instrument a lot, and I was really getting into music. But it wasn't really until the moment that I had this tuba quartet that I played with, and I kind of took the leadership role in a sense, where I was really working with the guys to put this piece together. And it was in that process that I really found I really liked teaching a lot, and that's how I decided that I wanted to go into the teaching route, and also because of my band director as well. And then as far as euphonium, I originally started on tuba, but I was such a small kid back then. I was after 2 days of really trying to blow as hard as I could into this big piece of metal, my band director said, you know what, let's switch it out and we'll give you something else. And that's how I started euphonium, and I never looked back after that. Instead
of my choosing music, I think it kind of chose me. I always wanted to play the flute, but when I was in the 6th grade, I had just a terrible overbite. You could see my teeth coming in the room before I got there. And the band director made some kind of little joke about that I should play the clarinet, although he was right. He said it would fit in my mouth better, but I just kind of was embarrassed and I left. And years later, when I was, I think after the summer when I was about to become a junior in high school, I said, you know what, I still want to learn how to play the flute. And there was the most wonderful new band director there, and he said, you know what, come on, I'll teach you how to play the flute over the summer. He did this for free. This was in a little town in Mississippi. Also, we did The Sound of Music when I was in high school, and I got to play the lead, and it was you know what, I love this singing with kids idea. I think I want to do this. So my two loves were music and psychology, and I guess teaching kind of helped to combine those two.
Well, my dad said I've been singing and dancing since before I could walk. So I think I was just wired for it. And so he stuck me in chorus. And when I was 5 years old in my school choir, since I was at a private school, you would do church service on Sunday, and then you would have class with the same music teacher. So it was, she was also my private piano teacher. So she was my everything. And she's the reason why I became who I became. And I just was a clown. So, of course, they stuck me in musical theater. I was not serious enough to do the piano, even though she kept teaching me piano. She's like, okay, you need to know piano. But I was just a jumping bean. And I was like, okay, can we finish now? And she's like, oh. So even though she was my private piano teacher, she was also my chorus teacher and my musical theater teacher. She says, I think I have something for you. And she stuck me in musical theater, and that was it. That was my niche. I could sing, I could dance, I can act, I can be crazy. Nobody cared, because in the theater world, I fit in. The classical world, still to this day, they look at me like I had 3 heads. So, it just fit. And then I didn't pick up guitar until college, because as a music therapist, you need to know the guitar. That's your main instrument. And I fell in love with it. And I'm very grateful for that. I wish I would have learned it sooner, because that to me fits, because you can sing and play at the same time. And it just, you can put it on your body and walk around. And for me, that was awesome. Maybe I should have did guitar when I was a kid. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But it was just, I had to channel my energy, and music was it. That it helped. It saved my life, and I was only good at that. So thank God I got scholarships through college just to sing. you know, Dr. Booth in Miami-Dade North Campus said, hey, if you come sing in my choir, I give you a scholarship. I was like, okay. And then, and then I got good grades at Miami-Dade, so I got a scholarship for Phi Theta Kappa to go to FSU. And I was like, okay, it just fit. It just doors kept opening. And, you know, I did music therapy for a couple years, loved it. But then I moved to North Carolina. There was no music therapy job. So I said, okay, let's try music ed. I'm a choral person. So I taught chorus for middle school 2 years. And I was like, ooh, I really like this. So when I came back to Miami, I was like, let me look for a music ed job. And I didn't stop liking music therapy. It just somehow it just kind of went somewhere else. And now I use both hats at the school because David knows firsthand, you need both of those hats a lot of times. Even though you're hired as one, you still use the other. It just goes together. So that's it.
In my case, it was something similar, I think. You know, I was going into many other different routes. I never really considered that I would go into music in college, but eventually that just happened. And, you know, it really was like this calling that I couldn't get away from despite me trying. But I was always involved, you know, like during my school years since early on. So that's sort of what kept me going. And then it was like Christy also mentioned, like this natural fit.
¿Cuántos años estudiaron música para llegar hasta donde está?
I think it's hard to say because most of us have started pretty young, you know, when we were like really young, like in elementary school. Mm-hmm. Like I can remember like singing, you know, in church and in elementary school. And I would say that maybe my music education started there. Formally, I started learning piano at 13. And then, you know, college education went until when I was 18. But I don't know, it's just like a lifelong thing. I don't think there's like a specific time limit. I think for most of us it's a lifelong. We're still learning.
I agree.
Yeah, I share that with you. You know, it really is like a continuous process. You know, we could find a place maybe early on when we started some instrument or something like that, but whatever age we are right now, we're still sort of in that process, still learning. I read once that you know, being a musician is not an end process, but it's always a becoming. Like you're always becoming a musician. It's like almost like you never get there. You are, but you're always becoming one as well.
But even as a vocalist, I noticed that because I haven't sung opera in so many years, that when I try to sing an aria, it doesn't sound the same. It doesn't feel the same. It's a muscle. So when I think of that muscle, that you have to keep refining that muscle and working on the muscle, just like a basketball player, you know. Yeah, your knowledge doesn't go away, but you know, I'm sure as a pianist, you remember everything, but there's some things that I noticed that I could do before I can't do anymore because all I'm doing is teaching. So I really think that I have to work harder on keep singing, even if it's not in front of anybody, so I can keep my instrument, which is my body, you know, up to par. I don't know if it's the same as, I don't know if that's the same as an instrumentalist, but as a vocalist, this muscle here, you got to keep using it. I mean,
no, it's 100% the same. Like, because we all have the musical mind and the knowledge to know and try and execute the technique. But after so long, our body doesn't respond the way we want it to because it's been so long sometimes, you know. So we know what we want to do, but it's just been so long that, you know, like you said, like our muscles are kind of, you know, they're not as fit as they were, so we have to work them back up so our mind can connect with what our body's trying to do. Well, our body can do what our mind is trying to tell it to do.
Yeah.
¿Cuántas horas les dan a sus instrumentos así de práctica?
I guess if you take it from a music teaching profession, we constantly are doing hours and hours of it each day. But if you're talking about our specific instruments, not as much as I would like it to be.
Right. Same here.
If I'm being honest about with my euphonium, I have not picked up my euphonium in months. So I can't even say that I practice on a daily basis because I really don't right now. So
I can say I vocalize every day just because it's such a routine to warm up. I drink my hot tea. I'm OCD with that. I think that's just part of being a vocalist. You just, you know, you don't start talking to people until I got to drink my tea, warm up my voice on my way to school. I've done that my whole career. But as far as singing like repertoire, I haven't done much of that, and I really feel guilty because I just miss it. I had to sing for a retirement party on Thursday, and it felt so good. I felt that euphoria that you feel that I haven't felt in a while. And I was like, oh, I miss this. But we don't get as many opportunities to do it anymore. I don't know. Or
what did you sing, if I can ask?
That's what friends are for. You know,
nothing
big,
one.
But
love it. No, that's good.
It was like the highlight of my week. Oh my God, I got to sing in front of an audience.
Right.
I mean, I had my mask on. It wasn't like I could be, but it was. I'm just saying, I don't know. I just wish that I would do more performing. You know, my last musical was 2013, and I got to be Mimi in Rent, which was like a highlight of my life because it was just awesome. But that was the last thing I've gotten to do professionally. So I'm like, oh man. So I feel like I don't get to practice as much as I should. Even though we're singing all week with our students,
every day.
It's not the same. Yeah. It's not. Even playing the guitar with my kids, I play the same 3 chords. I'm not even pushing myself with the, like, if I could play everything in the key of D, I'm like, yeah. Because I don't know, maybe it's just me. I just transpose everything to D to make it easier. I don't know.
I think to summarize it, most of us, we practice a lot more when we were younger, maybe not as much now. But there are opportunities, here and there to perform every once in a while. Like I sang with this group, the Mozart Requiem, a few weeks ago at Barry University. So it was a nice opportunity to bring that back. And so, there are some chances, but it's always so difficult coordinating with our teaching schedules, that kind of stuff, and getting together. But anytime that I do get to perform again, it's very refreshing.
Yes.
Mi pregunta es, ¿qué métodos utilizaron para seguir avanzando en la música o cómo avanzaron más rápido?
For me, to keep learning is to learn different ways of doing the things. Like becoming a teacher has been just magnificent for me to up my craft. So when I began teaching, I would do the standard things. I moved around the country a lot. When I was in Atlanta, that's where I learned about Schulwerk, and I did my level 1 there, and that really opened up a whole new thing for me. And then coming here and doing modern band and music in the brain, just that, and also working with other musicians, because I've learned so much from my fellow musicians. Somebody will say, oh, do you know about this? And then you get involved in that and you make music with somebody and you learn about different things. And I learned about, different styles of music. And so I'd say networking is one of the most important things that you can do as a musician, is meet other musicians, work with other musicians, maybe get outside of your comfort zone just a little bit. If, if you're a classical musician, maybe you're not too used to jazz, try it out. See what you think. You're going to grow and expand.
Yeah, I agree with Christy there. Because when I first started doing elementary, that wasn't really my forte per se. I was really used to working with middle school and high school students. And even though in my internship, I did do elementary for about 6 weeks, about 6-8 weeks, I wasn't really comfortable with. So I had to reach out to people. And I think part of it is aside from networking, it's really nothing beats just dedicating time to something. Right, because that was something that I always did when I was in high school. I put like 2 or 3 hours a day, when I was doing euphonium. So when I came to elementary school and I realized there was a big learning curve for me, I really immersed myself. So I think that's one thing, really immersing yourself in what it is you're trying to do, whether it's like, if it's something musical, like, I don't know, range, dedicating a lot of time to that. In my case, at that time, it was, methods, in elementary music, resources. Reaching out to my fellow teachers and just putting in time outside of the classroom and immersing myself as much as I could, so I can, just absorb as much as you can. And in that sense, really taking ownership of your learning, seeking those other resources, those books, and if you have a private teacher, like looking up on information or things you can, and, bringing it back to them as well. I think in summing up, it's immersing yourself in it, putting a lot of time into it, and taking ownership of different resources you can find to just keep acquiring as much knowledge as you can.
Yeah. When I started in the district, there wasn't much at all. I literally got hired at a job and there was no curriculum, no books, no instruments. Here, do your job. And I just looked at them like, what? Thank God I had my music therapy background. So I had a book of songs memorized, like out of the world with my guitar, slap on my guitar, go to the classes and do what I got to do. But that was my thing. I said, oh, I'm on a mission now. I have to meet people. I have to get resources. I can't live like this. This isn't music, you know. And then I joined ORF and blew up my mind. There we go. I met friends. And then I got obsessed with workshops because I wanted to be with other musicians. So then I literally went to every single elementary workshop there was because I needed to be with other musicians. You're the only one at your school in elementary. It's like, oh, I'm looking at all these people, I have nothing in common with them. So to me, I guess that's what started. Workshops were more about me networking, like Christy said, networking, meeting other musicians. What are you doing at your school? Oh, I want to try that. You know, what lesson do you have? Like it became just, and now my whole purpose in life is just to get more professional developments for you guys. You know, I'm just, I don't know. It's just, it started me saying, oh, I need, and now I'm like, okay, what do my teachers need? I need to get for what they need.
¿La música para ellos ha sido un gran cambio en su vida o no? ¿Y por qué?
It brought me to Miami. When I wanted to do music, but in Louisiana, where I'm from, in Mississippi, teachers there qualified for food stamps. So I decided I wanted to become a college professor. So that's what brought me to Miami, because this was the only place in 1986 that had the terminal degree in music industry. And that's why I wound up meeting the man who is now my husband of almost 30 years, John Monfort. And yeah, it really changed and improved my life. I can't imagine what my life would be like if not for music. So
I don't think I would have been able to afford to go to college. I didn't have parents that had any money or any idea of like, you're going to college? Oh, that's cool. If it wasn't for all the scholarships I got for singing in college or for getting good grades, I wouldn't even, my background, I was the first one to go to college. So this was a big deal for my family. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all the things that I've been able to do in my life have been as a result of music. Mm-hmm. You know, my jobs and my connections, my friendships. Music is just a really special place, and it's a great community.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. As much as it's helped me with school, and scholarships. There's so many facets to it, but my biggest thing for me was socially. Mm-hmm. There's and it's interesting because music doesn't make who you are, because we're more than that, right? Like as people, right? It's not like it's the one thing that consumes our lives, but at the same time, so many things that I have in my life right now, and the people that I know, and some of my most cherished memories came because of music.
Yeah.
So it's been a big influence. It's been a big influence for all of us, really.
It opened a lot of doors, definitely. It opens a lot of doors. I mean, through friends. Like Barry University, I had a friend who was in that chorus and they needed extras to go to Carnegie Hall and sing. And I was like, I volunteered. I want to be able to do, I don't even go to that university, but I went and it was fun. I'm just saying, because of musician friends saying, hey, I'm doing this. You want to do this? Okay, I got to study in London because I went to a master's program. I would have never gone to London if it wasn't for that master's program. I don't have money like that, but scholarships from loans, and I'm just saying it opened doors. Like David said, it gave us adventures that we probably wouldn't have been able to do.
¿Cómo lograron hacer todo eso? ¿Cómo no se ponían nerviosos por una actuación al frente de todos?
I don't know about you guys, but my nerves never went away. That's part of the rush. I mean, I don't know. That's part of that euphoria. That's part of that rush that your adrenaline pumps through your body. You're like, oh my God, I'm going in front of somebody. But once you're out there, you're like, that's it. The lights, I don't know about you, but Broadway is like, once those lights are on me, I'm like, that's it, I'm someone else. Christy, who's Christy? I'm the character that I'm playing, and I've never felt more alive than like that. Like it, but the nerves to get out there, yeah, that don't go, I don't know about you guys, that doesn't go away.
Saw an interview one time, or it was like an anecdote in an article, and he was reprising his role in Cabaret because he debuted on Broadway. And then he was talking to the director, he's like, and he says, and he was saying like, "Are you nervous?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm nervous." But it was like, and he was saying it because like, and the director said, "That's a good thing. It means that you still care."
Yeah, you still
about
care
what's going on, right? And I think that's like, to Christy's point, it never goes away. You know, I think if you stop getting nervous, I think that might be an issue maybe, because, you know, like when you get nervous, it's because you care about something and the outcome of it and what's happening. So those never really go away from me, and I think probably most of us. But it's just about like learning how to manage it.
Yeah, channeling.
And living and channeling and living with it, but it doesn't go away. It's just, you know, how do you carry it?
I don't feel any nerves performing in front of my kids, but when I'm with other adults, I notice I feel more nerves when it's a small environment than if it's 500 people. I don't know, maybe because you can't see 500 faces. I don't know.
I like to tell my students, take that energy and turn it into rocket fuel, you know? Turn it into, use that to push yourself over, because it really is. It's a wonderful energy. And if you imagine, you need to kind of visualize yourself being extremely successful. You know, if you go up there saying, "Oh, I'm going to mess up," then you're probably going to mess up. But if you go up there and you say, "Okay, I'm going to take this energy, I'm going to put it into my vibrato, I'm going to put it into my performance, I'm going to put it into my emotions," and you turn that into something positive, then that will always carry you forward.
Yeah, I think the nerves don't disappear. It's just like how we deal and work with the nerves and how we redirect that into like positive energy, like Christy said.
It's true though, because you don't want it to what's the word? Some people, it gets in the way where they can't perform. You don't want it like that. You want it to, like Tracy said, and drive it to where you want to even perform better. You want to, you know, yeah.
There's a really good, very old book. I don't know if they're still recommending it, but back when I was in college, it was The Inner Game of Golf. And then they actually wrote one for musicians called The Inner Game of Music. So it's like how to take performance anxiety and actually, you know, turn your performance into, instead of being nervous about it, how to actually get into the flow and use it for a positive thing. So The Inner Game of Music.
You know, some of the things that, you know, looking at studies and things like that, is that there is an optimum level of anxiety that you actually need to feel to perform at your very best, because you need that energy, you need that drive. Otherwise it's gonna be like a plain performance, you know, like just a boring thing. And that's why it's I think so different between us performing in our rooms and the energy that we can convey performing with other people, because we start to feel like we're on that edge where, you know, everything can go wrong. And so, you know, it's such a risky thing as well. And so I think that's also something also that keeps us going. You know, in the same book that I quoted before, he mentions, you know, people don't notice, but we're always sort of wrestling our instruments into submission, which is, I mean, it's an interesting analogy, because definitely it is tough. And sometimes when we're, you know, trying to play at the edge of our ability, we have to, like, you know, it's hard, you know, we make it seem like it's sort of easy, and we've practiced it so that it, you know, comes out easy. But there are hard things that are happening. There are challenging things that we're doing with our bodies. And so there's always the risk of something, just small thing going wrong and, you know, just messing up in a way, and then not living up to your own standards or something like that. But I think that's part of the rush. And that's why when we end a performance, we feel so, you know, like this unexplainable energy, or like, you know, like, what was this amazing thing that just happened?
Mi pregunta es, o sea, ¿quién fue la persona que más le inspiró en su vida de músico?
For me, easily it was my band director in high school. You know, I went into it I had him for my freshman year, and then towards the end of my sophomore year, I was just standing in the band room, just practicing. There was nothing particular I was doing. You know, it was just a regular day. And then he just came out of nowhere and he says, "Do you want to take private lessons with me?" And I said, okay, how much? And then he said, oh, don't worry about it. It's like, I just want to see you get better, because he saw potential in me. And that was a really big impact on me. You know, the fact that, because I also, in a sense, didn't have a father figure too, because my mother and my father got divorced when I was younger. So, you know, even though I still kept touching my dad, I didn't really have like a male figure there. So, you know, like in a certain sense, he was also kind of like a father figure to me in that sense. And it really impacted me a lot, because, you know, it was something that he just did like out of the goodness of his heart, and it really touched me in a very profound way, right? And it wasn't, you know, and I obviously I got a lot better at my instrument, but it was, you know, he didn't have to do that, right? He didn't have to do that, but he did. And he's the one that had the biggest impact on me musically too, because I got so many musical ideas from him and stuff. But like, you just like also like that spirit of generosity and giving back to like your students and things. That's what really inspired me and had a big impact on my career, and eventually set me down on my career path to be an educator. You know, is partly because a big reason is because of him.
I think maybe that's probably why it's important for our students to see us perform too, because I got to see her outside of school as a performing artist, you know, and that made me say, I want to be her, you know what I mean? Like, I want to sing like that. I want to be in those shows. I think that impacted me. My middle school teachers were good and all, but it wasn't a niche. My high school teacher, thank God for him, because he prepared me for my audition. He got me my audition, and he went to my audition for Miami-Dade. And if it wasn't for him, I probably would have never went to college, because my dad raised me by himself. He didn't know as long as I went to school, he was happy. Like, he didn't, you know, so yeah, Mr. Wells, he took me the whole way. Like, I'm telling you, like, those little things do matter. They do matter. I mean, you know, one lights the flame, but someone else has to nurture it. You know what I mean?
For me, it was my advisor at the university that really like helped me like focus on music education and music therapy and kind of find my path, and encouraged me and challenged me to like learn new things and try to expand my you know, views on music education, and I think they're the ones that really sent me the most into where I am today.
For vocal performance, to be an opera singer. I got in, had my schedule, everything ready to go to UM. And the president of Miami-Dade North Campus came up to me, so you know, because she knew me from around. We always sang all over campus, so she knew me. And I worked there, and, you know, this is the student center, so she knew me. She goes, so what are you going to do with your life? And I'm like, okay, I'm talking to her. She goes, and I don't even know what she said to me that day, but I literally dropped out of UM and went to FSU for music therapy. Like whatever. And I swear for the life of me, I don't know what she said to me, but whatever it was to the point where I literally changed my whole thing, maybe a year behind. I was supposed to graduate in 2000 with the rest of my friends. Everything changed. I mean, when I say I had my schedule to UM, I even put the deposit. At that time, it was like $250 or whatever, just to have your spot. And whatever she said to me, that was it. I withdraw. I didn't, telling you, it took me a year. I saved up money and I went to FSU for music therapy. Crazy how your life can change just by one thing that someone says to you. And to this day, I don't even know what she said to me. But it impacted me.
I have three, if I can do that. First was my grandmother. My grandmother raised me, and she was always playing music for my cousins and me. She was not a musician. She was a wonderful visual artist, but she loved to sing, but bless her heart, she was not a singer. But she would take us to see she took us to see The Sound of Music when I was 5 years old. And we loved it so much that she took us back in, bought more tickets, and let us sit for 3 more hours and watch it. She would play the musicals for me on the old Victrola with the Valley High and all the musicals, and she always supported me no matter what. The second one was that band director, as Joshua said, the band director who took a chance on me as a 15-year-old and said, here, okay, I'll teach you to play the flute, because I love music so much, and I had so regretted not doing it when I could start in the 5th grade. And one more lady, her name was Margie Hewlett. She was the one who was the director when we did The Sound of Music. She did 2 amazing things for me. Number one, she got me to see that singing with those kids was so much fun. And the other thing she did the same year, this was again in Mississippi, there was a little girl who had moved from Costa Rica and she got me to work with this little girl because I was a new student in Spanish, and she got me to teach this little girl, tutor her in English, and we had so much fun that when I had the chance, when I moved here to Miami, all of a sudden everything fit together, and I'm teaching kids who speak Spanish, and I'm teaching them music, and it's like, wow, blew my mind.
Crazy how we get there.
How yes, exactly.
How our paths just crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's from different realms of life that can happen. I mean, in my case, it was I can the main people I think were family members, because my cousin was playing the piano. I saw him when I was 4 years old, and I figured that looks so fun. I want to do that. And so then my grandma helped me with the piano lessons early on. But then my grandfather, from the other side, he was a musician as well. So he would, he had similar profile than me. He would play the guitar, sing, improvise all sorts of things, just play things by ear, play the keyboard, play the harmonica, whatever. And he didn't really at any point in his life had like formal instruction. He just learned, by asking somebody else or things like that. But it was just his drive and his creativity into just picking up things and like that adventure sense in music that he gave me his guitar. So that also, was a part of it. And then my mother, who through questioning got me to end up studying music, because I remember, I had the guitar and she said, wait, why don't you study guitar? And I guess, well, why don't I? So then I went to study guitar, and then, I was going to go to something else. And she heard some recordings I was doing when I was 18. And she was like, well, why don't you go study music instead? And I was like, well, yeah, good point. Why don't I? And so then I went, and, just how things shifted.
En la carrera musical, ¿cuál es el mejor consejo que le han dado?
Don't give up. Do what you love. Follow your passion. And you'll find what it is that you're supposed to be doing.
Cuando no entendían algo, digamos, cuando les explicaban en la escuela, cosas así, digamos, ¿cuál era como la respuesta de los profesores, ¿entiende?
I guess it depends what it is. If it was something musical, like a technical passage that was hard, there were some good, examples like, okay, slow it way down and practice it a certain number of times until you're comfortable, and then speed it up.
Yeah, or just take these 2 measures and work on these 2 measures until you got that, and then add another one, yeah.
I think also just like connecting it, relating to something that made sense to us. Like, so if it was, for example, the circle of fifths, like coming up with like an acronym or a name for it, like I mean, we do it too. Like, okay, FACE, FACE, finding like little like tricks that would like help like get the concept stick to us, or trying to relate it something that like we knew to help us better understand it. So making a connection to something that we already understood.
When I heard that question, this first thing that came to my mind were some negative experiences that I had. Because, sometimes I do remember, for example, particularly in college, some vocal teachers or like, the vocal people that were there maybe getting frustrated at me if I couldn't do something the way they were suggesting. And those really had an impact because they drain you emotionally. Like you're in a vulnerable place trying to do something, particularly with your voice. But I think that's something that needs to be avoided, of course, like we don't, I credit that to their lack of pedagogical, just background training and their lack of sensitivity in some senses, but they they didn't know what else to do. They didn't know how to reach me. So they would get frustrated and or tell me that wasn't for me, for example, when I knew that I could do it, and they were like, no, maybe this is just not for you, let's try something else. So yeah, I think, I guess in terms of their responses, if that happens, sometimes there's a feeling that you have that's for you. And eventually, in this case, for example, it was for me. It was like a thing about a vocal range for like a rock song. And she was like, yeah, this is not for your voice. But it ended up actually being for my voice. But I just hadn't developed to that point yet. And she didn't know how to sort of get me there. So, just keep on your own developing despite those setbacks that you might have?
That was one of my biggest problems too, because when I was in the 6th grade, and I wish I could go back and tell my younger self and say, teachers are human beings too. They make mistakes. Don't let what one person says for you put that fire out, because it's still going to be there. It's going to come back. So maybe find a different teacher. Maybe ask someone who knows more or is more patient. Don't give up just because someone says, oh, no, then, I get so upset when I hear that teachers have told students, oh, honey, you're not a singer. You just move your lips. Because those children grow up to become principals who don't want to support the music program. The thing is, that's our job as teachers, is to teach them how to get there. Find a way. So, yeah, if that question was coming from a place of, maybe they felt bad that a teacher made them feel bad about something, that don't take that to heart.
That's a good point, Christy. I know a lot of teachers that, I know we audition our kids for a lot of things, and I get why, because you want quality. But in the elementary, I have a little thing against that. Just let them in.
Yes.
Just let them in. Let them experience it. I mean, okay, maybe you don't want to take them to honors or whatever. That's different.
Right.
That could be the high. But in your chorus or your group, just let them in. Let them experience it.
Para un compositor, mi pregunta sería, ¿cuál cree que es su mejor canción y por qué?
That's kind of like saying which child is your favorite. They're all different, and because I've written lots of different styles of songs, and I guess there's different ones for different things. That's not a great answer. Perhaps it's a bit of a cop out, but at least for me, it's true. It's yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Most of the time I wrote songs, I never wrote them down. I would just sing to express myself as therapy, but I never. I can't ever produce it again, So I'm not the perfect person to answer that question.
Pues algunas progresiones armónicas que tengan muy poco comunes, que funcionen bien, o sea, elaborando alguna canción.
Person, yeah. 1, 4, 2, 5, 1.
A little 6 minor in there.
The septic cadence, and then but I'm not a
tension somewhere.
Right, and I'm not a composer in the sense that I put finished product and music together. But if there's one thing I will say to answer his question in a sense, is that, and I got this from my Dr. Alston when I was at FIU and I was playing the wind ensemble with him, is that we were going through this passage of a piece and it had this very simple chord progression. And he said, what makes it powerful is not the complexity of it. It's the simplicity of it and the inevitability of where the progression goes.
Oh, that's good.
So I would ask him, do you have to have a complex chord progression for something to sound good? Just because it's simple doesn't mean it sounds bad, right? In a sense, it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
In that kind of a sense, right? It doesn't have to be super complex for it to still do what you want it to do and for it to still have a profound effect, because it's the inevitability of what it does and what happens that gives it the profoundness of it.
Yeah, I had that experience seeing a live performance, because I remember the composer sent me the music sheet, and I was looking at it. I was thinking, this is so simple, it's just 2 chords. It's not that exciting, really, And I was thinking like that idea of I just want to build different chord progressions, different chords. I want to do something that's a little bit out there, and not sort of sticking with these more basic things. But then when they performed it live, in the auditorium and everyone with their instruments and everything, it was so powerful to hear those 2 chords play together, with the drums and with the whole group, it sort of changed my mind a little bit in terms of the potential impact and how powerful it can be, even if it's just 1 chord, you can just hear 1 chord live in front of, and the impact that it has is not necessarily on how many chords or how exotic the chord progression is, but just how sort of how you mean it, like the intention behind it, I think has a lot to do with that as well.
I think it's pretty interesting when we take that class, that literature class in college, and we're analyzing all these different styles of music. And then you see the beginning of the 20th century popular music had tons of chord changes. And now you look at popular music now, maybe 3 chords, maybe not even. Some of the Adele songs are 2 chords? I mean, like it's just crazy when you analyze that.
And I think also something, now that you mentioned that, something that is gained from that, it gives you new possibilities. For example, I think from the Miles Davis kind of blues album, one of the things that they were thinking at that point was that, jazz had gone through, I think, this bebop era where there were so many chords, and the challenge was precisely navigating those complex harmonic progressions. But then they decided to sort of, release that a little bit, let that go a little bit, let that tradition go, and then focus on the melodic development. So some of the pieces were just 1 chord for the whole section. And so it was up to the musicians to make that interesting through their melodies rather than through the chord changes. Right. It was like, what melody can you make really interesting with this just 1 chord? And the melody, the solos that you hear in that piece, you don't even know that it's 1 chord. Like, you're not thinking about, it's just 1 chord. You're just thinking like how powerful these melodies can be and how they impact you.
Like So What? I know exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. A song by Miles Davis was So What?
Right, and it's like 2 chords. The whole piece is like 2 chords. It has where I think it starts in 1, then modulates 1 half step higher, and then goes back to the previous key, and that's it. But it's that melodic development that's all in there. All right, good question, I guess, right? Let's see what they one more.
¿Qué han tenido que sacrificar ellos por su carrera? ¿Qué es lo que tuvieron que afrontar?
Any semblance of a social life. No, I'm just kidding.
No money? No, I'm just kidding.
I had to move far away from home, but I fell in love with a new home. So, yeah.
I think the only thing I sacrifice, like you said, it's just time. I mean, when you're in a show, it takes a lot of time. Like my last show was 7 weeks run. And at that time, I was just starting to date my fiance, and that was a sacrifice because we almost broke up over it. He's like, I never see you. You know what I mean? But I was like, this is part of being with a musician. I mean, we do a lot of extra things. I mean, it's dedication. You need, I guess, I agree with Joshua and Christy. It's, And unless you become famous, you're never going to have a lot of dinero either. So, but
about the money element, it's interesting because, of course, it's a challenge, I think, for many music artists. Like the industry sort of it's a matter of just a few people who sort of really get into the potential of what the music industry can offer, and just the working musician has to do all sorts of things to get sort of revenue and to be able to afford their lives. But it was interesting. One of the members, one of the group members also from we used to play together, and once I graduated, we had gotten from this teacher he was a music industry professor. She was also always telling us like, value your career, like the producer, no one's asking the producer to go in there for free, so why are you as a musician sort of just going there for free to perform? So I started to sort of navigate this idea. So I will tell him but we're not getting paid, like why do we have to put all this work? And he once got upset and told me, hey, if you wanted to do if you wanted to just do money, you should have studied something else. You should have gone to business, you should have gone do something else, because we're here for just we're doing this because we love to do it. And that also made me reflect a little bit that there has to be a balance, of course. It's also work that we do, it's labor that we're putting, is what we train to do. But most of us, didn't go into music because we wanted to be millionaires. That maybe those ideas start to come later, but we went because just it was something that we were passionate about. We didn't care. I don't know. Probably it's not what our main concern was when we started thinking about going into music, however that looked.
Right. I think we all care about the human side of things. You know, that's one of the biggest things.
I think that's why I stopped going into just performing only, because I didn't want my performance to be a job.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I could have easily just, you know, I studied in Broadway for that, you know, that semester to do Broadway, but I thought to myself that 8 shows a day, and I'm thinking then it's just routine. I wanted more of the creative side. So I think it's how you look at it.
I mean, Eric Whitaker also said that too. Like, that's one of the downfalls of majoring and doing this for a living sometimes, is the fact that it can feel like a job sometimes, you know, and we've all seen it, where, you know, we went into freshman year with like 80 people in our class, and by the time we finished, there's only 20 left.
Yeah.
Right. And not just because of, you know, like some just couldn't crack and hack it, but some just lost that drive and passion because of all these classes, and, you know, it became something else for them.
Yes.
Right.
That's interesting you mentioned, because, you know, when I went to audition for college, I fell in love with the idea. Like, I was hearing from the rooms that, like, the professor was telling them, yeah, you know, like, this is your homework, and it was like playing something. I couldn't believe that your homework would be playing something. Like, what? Like, is this? Am I in paradise? But then when you get into that, it really starts to feel like homework. Like, now you know, I remember throughout the college years, it really at a point starts to feel you sort of start to lose the fun of it in certain things, when it really becomes this heavy thing that you have to, you know, it's work sort of, you know, you get into this dynamic where it's not this spontaneous joy that, you know, you just want to do it because you want to do it, but now it's something that you have to do it with this timeline. And so it becomes a more stressful scenario, I think. But, you know, I think fortunately we've all been able to eventually find those moments of joy. We keep finding somehow those moments of joy to keep doing music.
And some people know them. They know themselves. They know that, okay, like that balance you were saying. Some people know that they can live paycheck to paycheck. I couldn't live what's the next show I'm going to get to pay my bills. I needed something steady and stable. So music therapy, music ed was my route, because I knew my personality. I have other friends where they're fine, live paycheck to paycheck. They never know when their next gig is, and they're happy because they're just doing what they want to do. So it really depends on you also, and how you, navigate life. I mean, you know, my friend, he reinvents himself all the time. He does those traveling tours, musicals. He's in Adriel Garcia, he's in a different city every week. You know, like, he just finished one tour. He was in Fort Myers. Now he was in another state, and now he's back in New York. It's like, wow. And I always admired that about him. He used to go on the cruise line. It's like, wherever the wind blew, he went. As long as, you know, like, I wish I had that. But I just didn't fit my personality.
Yeah, there's different opportunities for musicians to, you know, to find even like, you know, like a cruise, like you mentioned, you might get a position where you're all the time being paid to play. They are demanding jobs as well, you know, but I think it's a good point that you mentioned, like, everyone has to know themselves, what they're able to do and what they're able to tolerate in terms of, you know, financial situations, and, you know, decide based on that as well.
¿Cómo equilibran su carrera musical con otras responsabilidades como pareja, hijos o trabajo?
Well, I did it I used to work as a professional singer, like on the weekends and things. I would sing at, you know, parties and weddings and clubs and nightclubs and things like that. But that was back when I was young, when I was like, I think from 19 to 32, I never spent a New Year's Eve with my significant other, with my husband, now my husband, but yeah. But then after that, so I had my daughter at 34. So I kind of did the thing where you can have it all, but you just can't have it all at the same time. So it just sort of worked out that way for me. It would have been a lot harder if I'd had children young. But for me, it worked out fine. So.
Yeah, I think when I needed money the most, like when I was doing my master's and when I was doing my braces and when I was doing the buy my place, I did all the extra work. I did all the extra work that I had to do. Hours and hours of extra, you know, even private lessons if I had to. But once I got to the point in my life where I didn't need the money, I just taught and went home. Like, and whatever I had to do because mentally I was just tired. But then now I feel bad because I haven't been able to perform since 2013 because I was tired. So part of me wants to get back, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same as Christy, where, you know, sometimes it just depends like on like my mental state of mind. You know, if I've been like burying my nose in books or like, you know, workshopping methods and I'm just burned out, I'm like, okay, I need, you know, friend time, I need family time, I need something else. And for me personally, I'm a big schedule person. I have to have things scheduled so that, you know, like, because I like things orderly, but also that way I can make sure that I space everything out. You know, I leave some time for, you know, meditation. I leave some time for exercise and stuff like that, because if I don't, then any one activity can just consume so much of my time, and then everything gets kind of thrown out of balance, right? And I think that's a very big thing, right? Everything has to be in balance, right? Our mind, our body, and our spirit. You have to dedicate time for all of it, because if one thing's out of whack, it can kind of bleed into some of the other things that we do, and, you know, it kind of throws us off our equilibrium, I think.
No, this year was survival mode.
Oh, it was, but like,
you forget to take care of yourself.
This year was such an outlier, because you know what, Chrissy, I was the opposite, to be very frank. Because of how crazy things were, I think I took too much time for myself. And sometimes I wouldn't put as much time into planning stuff that I needed to, you know. So like I said, it's about striking a balance. But this year specifically was just so crazy that it was so difficult to do.
¿Qué tan difícil es vivir de la música?
Well, I mean, the simple answer is, how big of a star are you going to be? But I think it's doable. You're not going to live. You might not live in necessarily a lap of luxury.
Yeah.
But I think, like, for me, because we all have musician friends, and the ones that are out there performing for a living, the one thing that like I noticed with the ones that I'm friends with is that their money is obviously a concern because we need it to survive, but it's more about like the mentality they have. Right, because like for them, it's like the money will come. It's okay. It's not. I'm not stressing about the money part. It's just about me playing. So if you're talking about making a living, as far as like monetary wise, you know, it might be a little bit difficult at times, but I think it's also just about the mentality you have on how you approach it. Because if you're like worried about the money and you're always worried about the money, I really don't think the performance aspect might be the like for Christy. I don't think it's the way for you to go. Mm-hmm. Right, but if you take it from a mind like, look, the money will come, and you know, like it will, like, you know, like I'm just going to be concerned with playing, then you're gonna be fine, and it's definitely doable.
Mm-hmm. And also, if you're willing to be flexible, okay, maybe you're not going to have just a career where you're going to just be a performer. Maybe you'll also teach. Maybe you'll also write. Maybe you'll also give private lessons. But if you love music enough, then that's what you're going to want to do. If you live and breathe music, then if you have to live and breathe music, there are ways that you can do it and support yourself. But I think if you look at it from that point of view, then I think those are the people that are going to be very successful at it. It's like, okay, I have to fit this into my life because this is sort of my calling. You know?
And like what Chris said too, like being a jack of all trades, you're not going to be just a performer probably. You're probably going to teach. Yeah. You might have to do some writing. So, you know, like it's also like just trying to pick up as much knowledge as you can, like, you know, composition, lyrical things. It's if you're gonna do the performance side of it, you gotta be ready to jump into everything and pick up as many skills as you can, even if it's outside of your comfort zone, because it's gonna open that much more doors for you, and just like give you a means for income and opportunities.
Que si les parece que estas situaciones como esta pandemia cambian la manera de entender la realidad y la música.
How more important it is.
Yes.
Yeah. And like how we approach it and do it as well, I think. Because
I think all of us reinvented ourselves even as teachers this year.
Yes, absolutely.
I've done more compositional and I've done so much more composition creative things with my kids than I have in the past 2 years.
Yes.
Of teaching, and it's been crazy because of the lack of resources that we had.
Yes.
You know, and like incorporating technology was something I was kind of doing before, like with Victor, but this year it was just on a whole different level. And it's like, you know, there's different ways to interact and do music it's not just the way we used to do it. And that's another big thing that, people are talking about, is that when we go back to recaptions, it's not about going back to the way things were, but using the things that we learned, incorporating them once we go back and we have all our resources available to us again.
Yeah. I was so grateful for my ORF background because of the emphasis on the composing and the improvising and the all these different ways that you approach music that aren't like the typical stereotypical performing arts. You know what I mean? Like, I could do so much more, like you said, that creativity and having them compose and having them even analyzing music. I never have time to really do that. Sitting down and just listening to music and just talking about it. That music appreciation part, half of the time we just kind of breeze through it because we have to get to the performing part. So it was kind of nice to just sit there and spend a whole month on jazz and a whole month on hip hop and then have them write their own songs for each and compose their own compositions using, like you said, software. And I just enjoyed it. I felt like I just got more out of it than rushing through it saying, I got to get to the performing. We have to play this or we have to play that. I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah, I think it definitely changed the way that we conceive many practices, and it made us change also some other practices. I think when you began by saying, sort of we realized how important it is, in a sense. Yeah, I was also seeing that all over the place, like people wanting to take more, music lessons from home, or, just developing new projects that before weren't possible, or, just interacting with technology in different ways, because, now that was, the limitations that we had. So, yeah, it gets in that realm, it showed us some new possibilities.
It also pushed us to learn new things that we wouldn't have done.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think I grew as a teacher just because I had to learn all these new things, technology. Never once would I think to do that in my class. Oh, well, now you got to do it.
Leaps and bounds.
Yes.
¿Cómo lograron afrontar esto de la pandemia, ya que a todos esto les afectó? O sea, ¿cómo hicieron para seguir juntos en la música?
Thank God for Zoom. For, those multi-screen videos that drove us crazy from hours and hours of our life gone, just to make a proof of life that we actually did something with our kids. Oh, God. Yeah.
I think, Chrissy said, it was just technology. I mean, let's be honest. This happened before, right? The Spanish flu in 1918. If we were in 1918 and the closest schools and everything closed down, how are we going to be making music? How are we going to make music with all the restrictions that we had there? It wouldn't have been possible. You would have been in your own bubble. And I think the simple, and as simple as it is, the answer is technology. Right, how much it advanced, like being able to collaborate online, through softwares, leave work for somebody and they come into the studio later and then they keep working on where you left off, and all, messaging, drives, technology, I think, is what's really allowed us to do all of these things. Without it, I think it would have been very difficult to connect as we did.
Thank God for Flipgrid, because you can't hear the kids in the Zoom room all perform at the same time. So I would teach them a concept and I'm like, okay, now go into Flipgrid and record your performance so I can hear you, because I can't hear you on Zoom. We have to be muted or whatever. Or we could take turns performing, but not at the same time.
Yeah. And you can't make it for the whole class, it's like impossible.
I mean, for me, for example, it did open new possibilities. Like we started, working precisely with a friend on like a new music project that before we had other things to do. Each one had its own priorities, but now, we found the perfect vehicle to just keep collaborating, despite the geographical distance. So I think something that the pandemic did was it together with music, it also brought us together in many ways.
Yeah.
And just from the teaching side of also for me, it was interesting to see, for example, certain instruments you know, we went back to school in the university. We went back to face-to-face encounters. So we could play certain instruments, for example, the guitar, you know, like string instruments we could play. But, you know, we were at the beginning, we weren't comfortable just like playing recorders, for example, you know, like playing flutes, and some courses would like go outside and try to play without the masks on. Yeah. But for us, like trying to play those instruments, we didn't fit enough people in the room. So we would do just, you know, through Zoom. And, you know, it wasn't the best case scenario, but we were able to just do it through that.
Yes, I got by with a lot of help from my friends. That's how I got through the pandemic. That's how I was able to do music, was people like Christy Pagan and Ryan Gardner and all the folks who taught me the new technology. They proved that you can teach an old dog new tricks. So that's how I was able to get through.
Talking about Ryan found this new thing, ironically, at the end of the year, so we can't use it, called Music Overture, and they have gig rooms, and you literally can play with your friends live without any delay. So I just put the link in there for you guys to check it out.